There we are. Where last episode, we successfully escaped Coldridge Prison. Without, being seen. And only killed 2 guards. And we're currently ransacking Piero's place.
The Academy teaches that absurd idea that the energy in whale oil arises from the need to maintain life functions at extreme ocean depths. The pressure and the cold are too much to endure without it. I speculate that a human being might, by a process of adaptation, produce high-energy humors in the body. I could build a tank that would slowly increase pressure on a subject over a long period of time and then observe them for years if need be to see if the formulation of energetic substances develop. Surely the Empress would be able to furnish me with facilities subject to the necessary legal amnesty.
Creepy.
Perfect. Now plug it in.
Oh yeah, we're about to get our mask from him.
Thank you, Cole. Here, see? The assassin's mask. You're a wanted man, so everyone in the city knows your face, but this mask will mean terror to them. If you just hold still, the fit must be precise. There. Can you see normally? Some lens out of alignment. There. Better now? I could create more for you. Upgrades for your gear, weapons, munitions. But our situation here is desperate. Scavenge the city for valuables and I will resell them on the black market. That should give us the money to craft the things you need. Tell me what I can make for you.
Alright. Sure. Alright, we need... For starters... can't buy runes yet, but we need... Mask optics. I need... None of these are important at the moment. Probably bolt capacity would be good. But before we do that, I don't need combat sleep dart because we're never going to get to that point. And reload speed's not going to be super big of an issue. I need accuracy. Then I need range.
You must be exhausted. I advise that you get some sleep. Your life will get even more difficult soon. You should rest while you can.
Sure, but I'm going to poke around a little bit.
Very well. You know best. Let me know if you need anything more.
Sure, I will. Alright, a second solution. Excerpt from a series of newspaper articles from our prominent natural philosophers by Piero Joplin. It is through no fault of my own that the average citizen expresses a preference for Sokolov's elixir over my own formula sold as Piero's remedy, a name I did not choose if you must know the truth. The public has spoken its usual message of idiocy, spending their coin as a means of selecting Sokolov's formula over mine, which I believe to be equal, if not superior. Much has been made of the popularity of these concoctions as a means of resisting this remarkable new plague. I say remarkable because this strain works with an efficacy we have not seen in the history of the Empire. This plague, now making its way through the city of Dunwall, is unrivaled in its effectiveness. I have studied it within the blood of those so afflicted, and it is nearly perfect. Elegant, in fact. And while it is true that Piero's remedy and Sokolov's elixir are both known to protect the body against the plague equally, mine has its own properties, not fully understood, which relate to the mind itself and the spirit. And it is in this way my formula wins out. Here is where one should pay attention to this contest, for you see Sokolov's elixir, with its emphasis on the brute animal body, is crass goo better suited for livestock. The subtle and secret variants in the key ingredients making up Piero's remedy ensure that it will work on the higher functions that separate humankind from the mindless blue-jawed hagfish swimming the Wrenhaven River. Piero's request is denied. Piero, no, I will not sign off on these purchases. A bag of powdered crystal? Tivian ore? What's wrong with the metals in Gristrol? King Sparrow feathers? If you need feathers, sacrifice your own pillow. Maybe at the academy everything you needed was paid for by tariff and handed out willy-nilly. But this is my bar, or what's left of it, and we're operating on a budget. We're running low on oil, food, elixir, building materials, and everything else, so you've got to slow down. While I'm footing the bill, I will not approve of your purchases unless they're absolutely required. No more copper wire or special herbs. If you need those things, go out and scavenge them. Half the city's in ruins, so no one's going to miss any of the odd crap you seem to need. Admiral Havelock. Hey man, you want the best of the best, you gotta get the best materials. Piero understands that. And then... Sokolov's book kicked off the desk. That's totally on brand for Piero. Sokolov Technology in the New Age. Excerpt from a recent book detailing Sokolov's machines. One of the advantages of Sokolov's technologies is that they share the same magnetic socket for the tanks of processed whale oil they use as fuel. When a tank is exhausted, another can be plugged into place with ease, and the process is simple enough that any common workman or even the lower guardsmen of the city watch can handle the task. This also applies to the arc pylon and wall of light security systems, as well as the powered carriages used for transport by those few who are wealthy enough to afford them. The only obvious downside of Sokolov's designs is the volatility of the tanks themselves. A few incidents have occurred, resulting in damage to property or bodily harm whenever one of the tanks has exploded. And then... the outsider walks among us. There is but one more thing I need to read. Well, 3 more technically. Whale vivisection. Excerpt from the notes of a natural philosopher aboard a whaling ship. Remarkably, each specimen I had the pleasure of studying during the voyage possessed some minor variance in physiology. On the second leg of the trip, east of Tivia, the crew hauled aboard a female, some 42 feet, I'm guessing, in length. I estimate she weighed 35 tons, and the ship sat low, rocking side to side through the night with her thrashing. By candlelight, I took her apart, sketching and taking notes. Against her bellowing, I cut into the massive tentacles around her mouth. Within, I found row upon row of teeth and a baleen running along the upper jaw. Through this broom-like structure, I assumed she filtered food from the water that was too small to be chewed. Whale oil processing. Excerpt from the founder of the Greaves Whale House by Ebenezer Greaves. Out at sea, they secure the beast with hooks, with lines cast from the main ship and from several smaller boats. Buoys keep the whale from diving deep. Once it's caught, a larger hook is driven through the tail, which is used to hoist the creature up through the chute. They moan and bellow for some time as the men get them onto the deck and then lift them onto the scaffolding overhead. The ship adjusts its prow and returns to port in Dunwall, where the crew works on the great creature, slicing off the fattiest parts while it still lives, which is horrific. A whale oil refilling station. Sokolov no longer has the upper hand with regards to the supplies of whale oil. The good admiral has paid for the installation of my own system, which will enable you to work in this place. The oil tank dispenser, when activated, will produce an empty vessel for filling. When the empty tank is held near the oil tank refill pump, the magnetic attractor should take the tank and lock it in the correct configuration. Using the lever will begin the process. Once refilling is completed, the tank can be removed and placed into service. Extreme caution must be used when handling the full tanks. They are quite unstable. The system is sound and well engineered. It appears that the Greaves Oil Company has done something correctly for once. And that should be all my notes. Yeah. I can't take his key. Well, you know what that means, boys. And others. Ooh.
Is the man dangerous?
Yes, very much so, but no need to fear. He is here to work with our masters.
People say he killed the Empress.
Of course he didn't. People are foolish and believe whatever they're told.
Okay. If the Admiral trusts him, then so will I.
What's going on here?
The Admiral served in the Navy under the Empress. But something happened with the Lord Regent that drove the Admiral out. If I understand it right.
Weird shadows. And I believe I already poked around in these rooms, so. Alright. Time to meet the outsider. I've stalled long enough. Alright. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Hello, Corvo. Your life has taken a turn, has it not?
You could certainly say
The Empress
that.
is dead. Her precious daughter Emily is lost somewhere in the city, and you will play a pivotal role in the days to come. For this, I have chosen you and drawn you into the void. I am the outsider, and this is my mark. There are forces in the world and beyond the world, great forces that men call magic. And now, these forces will serve your will. Use this newfound power, my gift to you. Come find me.
Fallen letter. You cannot save her. You cannot save her. You cannot save her. You cannot save her. Corvo, I'm very sad. They say you're dead like Mother, but I'm going to put this note in a bottle and throw it into the river because I do not believe them. Living here is very strange. I do not like it, so please come for me if you can. Hints. Hints at the cat house and the Pendletons. Hints at Lord Hiram Burroughs desperately trying to take over the city and failing. And plots Sokolov. And I don't know that other face. Dowd, perhaps? Don't know. And what's this? Routes of Dunwall, Bastillion, Whitecliff, Potterstead, Hints. Hints at things yet to come. And of course the people of the city trying to take cover from Holger Square, from the tall boys. A hint at what could be. And a little stray strand. Which makes me wonder. Oh, it's water. It's water flowing up. That's interesting.
In the days that follow, your trials will be great, Corvo. Seek the ancient runes bearing my mark in the lonely places of your world, and at shrines raised in my name. These runes will grant you powers beyond those of other men.
And see his coat's
To help
torn
you find these runes, I give
at the
you
elbows.
this, the heart of a living thing, molded by my hands. With this heart, you will hear many secrets, and it will guide you toward my runes, no matter how they may be hidden. Listen to the heart now, and find another rune.
And also, I suspect the heart is that of the Empress.
This place is the end of all things, and the beginning.
And the reason for that is
All of time is meaningless here. Neither seconds, nor centuries. Someday this place will devour all the lights in the sky. The one who walks here is all things. Cradle songs of comfort and bones gnawed by teeth.
yet there is an air of perhaps justice about him.
This is the place from which those who dabble in the black arts draw their power. And this place is their doom.
Again, the demon that has the power that he controls is definitely evil. Demon's a bad word. Outsider is honestly the best way to describe it from the Dresden series. But he himself was mortal. And there is a semblance of consciousness there. Of a conscience.
I can feel the great age ending. This place is the end of all things.
And I think that was the
And
loop.
beginning. All of time.
Yep, that was the loop.
Not centuries.
Alright, now powers. I don't need dark vision.
How you use what I have given you falls upon you, as it has to the others before you. And now I return you to your world, but know that I will be watching with great interest.
See, from this first game, I get the impression that the outsider is sort of like a child playing with his toys. Like, he's just in it for the entertainment. But there are hints by the actions he takes in the DLCs to this game and in what little I played of Dishonored 2 that hint that perhaps he is more guilt-stricken than it may seem. That being said, rumors and sightings. Dowd. Excerpt from the Overseer's Covert Field Report. For over a year now I have lived away from the Abbey without the company of my Overseer brethren or the guidance of the blind sisters of the Oracular Order. Days have passed with me sleeping in dens of cut purses, murderers, and worse, and the nights have seen me prowling through the worst alleys and wretched corners of Dunwall. I have taken meals with killers. At time I have ventured beyond the city walls, meeting in forgotten graveyards in the outlying ruins frequented by those of ill means. My beard has grown long, and I wear the withered clothing and bits of boiled leather favored by the Bottle Street and Hatter gangs, and by those rough men and women who make their trade knifing others in return for coin. My hands have run red with blood, it's true, but I have selected my targets with care, choosing among those criminals and heretics that were not fit to live, executing them justly, and using their deaths as a means of building my reputation. Hair. Not still there, but whatever. So far, this trick has allowed me to make my name among murderers' colleagues without taking the lives of the innocent. My goal is singular. I must impress the assassin Dowd in order to get close to him. Of all the practitioners of black magic we've tracked, none concern the Abbey as much as Dowd. It is said that his mother was a witch from one of the archipelagos off the Pandasian coast, taken captive by pirates venturing far from the Isles. According to the legend, by the time the ship returned, the captain was dead and the witch controlled the crew, with Dowd still a shadow in her belly. I don't believe true at all. The earliest stories tell of a gang killer without mercy, moving among the shopkeepers and city watch officers of Dunwall like a reaper through wheat. Then, a period of silence followed. Years we now believe he spent traveling the Isles, studying the anatomy and the occult in the great halls of learning and hidden basements frequented by fellow dabblers in the forbidden arts. Dowd is even reported to have spent a winter in the Academy of Natural Philosophy itself, and, for a time before his schism developed, he encountered the Brigamore witches amongst his allies. All the while he honed his craft, and it is during this time we believe he began to consort with the outsider. New rumors emerged of a dusky-skinned assassin paid by the elite to eliminate their rivals in Dunwall and the other major cities across the Isles. Those who saw him numbered in the handful, but all of them reported something strange. He appeared and vanished like smoke. From a nearby rooftop he gestured, and a noblewoman stumbled from her balcony, falling to her doom on the cobblestones below. More recently, as this new threat of plague has risen in Dunwall, Dowd has been seen leading a gang of men in dark leather dressed as factory whalers in their vapor masks. They seem loyal beyond comprehension for one so unworthy, leading me to wonder if some of his magic is dedicated to lowering their minds, enslaving them. Only a month ago, one young girl claims to have come upon a strange scene. Carrying a bottle of milk home to her crippled brother, she was taking a shortcut through the Trailers District. In a narrow street, she passed beneath the window and heard unusual sounds from within. Pushing aside the ratty curtain, the girl saw into an abandoned apartment used by miscreants for gambling and trading haberweed. An occult shrine had been erected far against the far wall, which she recognized from the teachings given her by her local overseer. A man she described as resembling Dowd was kneeling before the shrine, muttering to an unseen spirit as if in argument. He took a carving made of pale bone from the altar before him, and the lights all went out in a gush of unclean wind. Quiet as a field mouse, she slipped away, running till she reached her home. There can be no doubt. Dowd is an agent of the outsider, and must die, for there is no limit to the evil this man might do. It is my solemn oath, and the great purpose of my life, until Dowd is dead and his corruption has been purged from the world. I will continue to move among the depraved, winding my way towards him. I will not drop my guise or don my overseer's mask again until Dowd breathes no more. Field Survey Notes. The Royal Spy. Excerpt from the personal memoirs of Hiram Burroughs, dated several years earlier. This is the 4th day, month of high cold. Progress continues on the suppression of gang activity in the Stilly District, but more slowly than I expected. The ruffians operating there have been cunning, I'll grant them that, but it is only a matter of time. I will see their leaders flogged in public and sent beneath the royal executioner's blade. If I had my way, that mute bastard would be working night and day, removing the heads that need removing. Internally, the Empress does not seem pleased with my investigations. It seems that it is beyond her thinking, against her very nature as a trusting person, to believe that traitors move amongst us. But I know they do. They must. No, Jessamine would rather spend her time with the royal protector. At least he's likely to stop any immediate threat to her safety, but a strong arm is not what's needed against those who would undermine us. How will Corvo's sword stop a poisoned wine glass or an explosive delivered by courier? It will not. There are many threats around us, threats requiring meticulous efforts to police. Young Lady Emily is undisciplined, I'm afraid. Here within Dunwall Tower, she receives instruction from the finest tutors known in the Isles, yet her mother spoils her, and she spends most of her time lost in imagination, wasting her time drawing or asking Corvo to teach her to fight with wooden sticks. This girl might rule the Empire someday. Every moment spent at play is a moment wasted. Shoring up for security in the main gate leading to Dunwall Tower has been another pet project of late. To think back in his day, Emperor Caldwin left it open to the public during the day, allowing anyone to come and go as they pleased. If it were up to me, I'd seal off access to the streets entirely, but the Empress won't hear of it. The waterlock is much easier to protect, and if it were the only way into the tower, traffic in and out would be greatly reduced. Someday, the wrong person is going to slip in and will suffer for it, mark my words. No amount of security is excessive when it comes to the protecting the heads of state. He seemed to be actually care about the Empress and the security of the Empire. I wonder what changed. I mean, he's still an asshole, don't get me wrong. But I'm curious. Perhaps it's the actions of a desperate man. I don't know. I have a feeling that DLCs will explain things more. The Empress also disapproves of my plan for the Sokolov devices. Sokolov himself has no interest in security, of course, but he's vain and therefore keen to see his inventions deployed in any fashion. This wall of light he's been tinkering with has promise. In any case, at least I was able to convince the Empress to upgrade the pistols carried by officers of the Watch. Why do I worry so when no one else seems to care? If I ever fall asleep, will it all sink into the ocean? Will the rough things clamber over the walls and fill themselves on our flesh? This is what I see in the same dream several times each month. If only I had more say in things, more authority, I could protect us all. I think Delilah's fucking with his head. Spoiler stuff, but I think Delilah's fucking with his head. I'll find out. Perhaps I've been working too hard. Dinner and an evening of conversation with a certain lady of refinement might be in order, perhaps somewhere nice in the estate district. Early life and criminal record, Slackjaw. Excerpt from a series of letters sent by a member of the Bottlesuit Gang. You want the chingwag on Slackjaw? What he was more like when he was a young, before he got his name. Oh, he got a cool head now. But it weren't always like that in the days before he was boss of the Bottle Street Gang. Time was, young Slackjaw wasn't a reasonable man. Like most of us, he grew up on the streets, running with a pack of ragamuffins, avoiding the law, pinching what he needed. Dark-haired and dark-eyed, smoking a pipe by age 10. For them bored into the brothels or coming from the orphanages, it was either the gangs or working with the mudlarks, and no one wants that. Some got pressed into the Navy or put down in the mines run by the Pendletons or the Boyle families. As hard as it was on the street, as hungry as we all got, at least it was free. By the time we weren't little uns anymore, Slackjaw was the one to watch. Usually calling the shots when he took down a farmer's cart or sidewalk street vendor. He'd come up with a plan, give everyone some part to play, and decide on the split. Most of us just went along because we learned fast that we made out better like that. More food, more coin. Plus, none of us wanted to deal with Slackjaw when he was in a rage. He worked on a couple of big jobs for Black Sally across town, and that was enough to get the attention of the other bosses. He wasn't just a street kid anymore. Now he was an up-and-comer, which meant trouble. Another guy, fancied himself as such, was Mike the Fish. He was working his way running up the protection racket amongst the factory women. One fine evening, we're all talking at a body showcase in the theater. Mike the Fish and his lot are there, and the cheap seats too, just down the aisle from us. Mike gets a wild idea. He wasn't big on planning, and throws a heavy ceramic spittoon at Slackjaw, hits him square in the face, and breaks his jaw. We look to see if there's going to be a blood brawl, but Slackjaw just points at the door and we all leave with Mike laughing at our backs. Waking up the next day without telling us why, Slackjaw motions us for all to follow. He still can't say a word, so we all just come along. We stop at the docks, and Slackjaw actually pays coin for it, a heavy chain covered in hooks. It's for fishing in deep, something you attach to a long line off the side of a ship. It's about 4 feet, made of thick links, and there are shark hooks coming off of it at different angles. Slackjaw's got that thing wrapped around his left arm, dangling at his side. Not sure how he knew where Mike the Fish was staying, but when he reached his girl's house, Slackjaw throws a bottle through the window. Just like that. That's almost new. There's a bunch of screaming inside, and Mike pokes his head out, looking wide-eyed and baffled. When he sees Slackjaw out in the street, a look comes over his face. It still gives me the wiles. Pure murder. Mike comes out the side door bellowing like a blood ox, holding a cleaver heading straight for Slackjaw. When they come together in the street, Slackjaw spins and the shark hooks bite deep into Mike's arm and shoulder. He screams, but Slackjaw holds on to the chain. He's standing there, jaw broken, clenched tight, with the chain wrapped around his left arm, hook sunk into Mike the Fish, just knifing him as fast as he can. Mike couldn't fight very well hooked like that, and using his left hand, but he was a big guy and it took a lot of stabbing before he went to his knees. Everyone was cheering at first. But then we all went quiet. It just kept going and going. Until finally it was just Mike the Fish blubbering, crying like a baby, and the sound of Slackjaw's knife. When it was over, and here's the brilliant part, Slackjaw took out a note and stuck to Mike's face with a nail. It just said, "If you want a job, come to Bottle Street." Slackjaw didn't talk right for a couple months, but word spread fast. By end of the year, once we had a sizable gang going, he sent out letters to other bosses telling him he was running for a brand new crew over on Bottle Street. Most of them laughed or beat up the guys who delivered the letters. Green-Eyed Trish even came back missing a thumb. But apparently Slackjaw was expecting that kind of reaction and had a backup plan. A week later, 4 of the bosses were dead. Seemed like a series of unfortunate events, but everyone knew better. One shot dead by the watch while standing in the middle of a meat market. Another slipping and falling into the water out cold. One of the older bosses found in bed with his belly open wide and a Tivian pear stuffed in his mouth. Still not sure what that meant. And Sheila Barnsworth was found bubbling in a cauldron of hot wax. Slackjaw sent out another set of letters. Offers to the underbosses, telling them they'd be treated fair as peers. Even sent Green-Eyed Trish with one of the letters. All the underbosses accepted. After spilling the guts of his main competition, Slackjaw went in for stabilizing his business, real neat-like, calling in favors, smoothing things over, giving everyone a little bit of coin or drink as a bonus, showing what he could act like as a boss. Soon, everything got quiet, which makes the show boys of the City Watch a little bit nervous. Word went out among the Royal Spymaster Snitches and the Responsible Citizens group they called themselves, telling everyone working in a shop or sweeping off the front streets of their homes to keep watchful eyes for Slackjaw and his men, trying to suss out what they were up to and what had just happened. But Slackjaw ain't stupid. He greased a few bombs amongst the shopkeepers and the watch too, telling him he was in town to stay and that things would be run properly from now on without so much blood. He was finally a real boss, ready to settle into the business of moving whiskey, running the hound fights, and offering up the ladies and gentlemen of the night. If you take my meaning. And then the plague came. First seemed like a good thing. A few people got sick, and everybody wanted to buy those potions from Sokolov or Piero. Health elixir, or spiritual remedy, they call them. Slackjaw told me he saw an opportunity. We already had an old whiskey factory with a still where we could water the stuff down and sell it discounted. Doing the same with Sokolov's elixir was a smart plan. Pretty soon, everybody in the slums was sick and business was good. But after a while, there were so many people down with the plague that everyone got scared. Everybody started to act real nasty and everything fell apart. And people can't work. They don't have the coin for elixir, watered down or pure. When Anthropus died, it seemed the Dunwall would slide into the void. Spy Master Burroughs took over, and the Watts started using all that new Sokolov technology, Watts towers, tall boys, and the Mark pylons. They put up a wall across Clavering Boulevard and cracked down hard. But Slackjaw surprised us again. Instead of leaving town on a boat bound for Morley or one of the other isles, he stayed and kept it all together. We get as much elixir to fight off the plague as the city watch, with their taxes and rations. That's kept it alive. So far. Crowley, Bottle Street Gang. And there's one more book. The Journal of Granny Rags. Excerpt from the Ramblings of a Street Denizen. Of course I'll tell you, dearie. I won't keep any secrets from you in the end. All the dreary days of my life are... That's fucking creepy. All the dreary days of my life are like the windows of a house. From the kitchen I can see out into the garden where the leaves and the stalks are brown and bug-eaten. You can see a little lump of dirt where something was wrapped in a blanket and laid to rest along the rows of twisting vines. The front room looks out into the street where the neighbors are all setting fire to their homes, barricading themselves inside. Warm and snug, dearie. Don't forget about the bedroom either. It sees into a dreary alley where hooligans are playing a game with an old man. The first two are hitting him with sticks, and a girl with them is kicking at his dry old ribs. Oh, to have those bones. To boil them in a pot. No one lives in my house anymore, dearie. No one you'd want to meet. When I lived there with my husband, we were fine, fine people. Vera Morway, everyone would say. Your house is as grand as Moyle Manor. Better even. Your dinners are lavish and your parties are the best. When that young Sokolov came to paint my portrait, I was nearly still in my prime. Radiant, he said. And he was just barely a man, so young, painting all the best people across the land. Everybody wanted a portrait by his hand. All my friends. I was the only one, dearie, wet with his paint, glistening across the canvas for a pretty coin. But it wasn't all parties and paintings. My husband and I weren't always at home, no. We traveled together, he and I, to the far ends of the isles, beyond even, all the way to the red cliffs of Pandysia. Uh-oh. To dig into the rock and claw through the caves, holding up candles and squinting at the walls. Many precious things we came upon, but none so precious as the boy with the black eyes, dearie. All those marks and bones, carved so deep and polished and bright. I brought the old bones home, hid them from my dear husband. Then I learned to boil them and carve them myself. They made such good presents, dearie. The mute boy took them home. He loved them so. All the time he came back with new bones for me, holding them up so I could see it in his eye, even though his tongue was still. Granny, his eyes would say to me, carve these bones for me, make me another present. And so he went so far, all the way to Dunwall Tower, the royal head... The executioner. That's fucking creepy. All the way to Dunwall Tower, the royal headsman himself now, my little mute boy and his shiny, shiny sword. Better bones were what I needed, you see. Better bones to carve and to polish, to scrape and to gleam. My dear old husband was always tired. I made him soup and then he was sick. Better bones was all. For my mute little boy I carved in the name of the one with the black eyes, and after my husband was gone, given away as birthday gifts, I didn't want to live there anymore. So now I'm old and don't have many to give my presents to. It's sifting through the garbage for granny rags and feeding the little birdies that gather at my feet. Nobody wants to have tea, dearie, especially those rude louts in Bottle Street, Slackjaw and his boys, always meddling with an old woman just trying to make her way. In the end, we'll all be together with him. You and me in the dreary night with stars above and below. And always the one with the black eyes, dearie. That's fucking disturbing as shit. Call this one the lore episode because it's...
space for Samuel then?
If you like, but he won't use it.
Why?
He can't sleep in regular beds anymore, or that's what he says. Says he was in the Navy too long. Can you believe it?
Oh.
That pile of wood out there? It's a hovel he built from an old rowboat. Where does Admiral Havelock from?
Lord Pendleton Memoirs, Chapter 27. In my 13th year, the despised stepmother at last departed, and Pendleton Hall was again quiet, although Father had by then sunk into deep depression. It was at this sensitive time that Waverly Boyle first entered my life. She who will be the source of many tender recollections to come.
That makes me wonder.
Attention Dunwall citizens. River traffic is forbidden from landing in the distillery district due to risk of
I'm looking
infectious
for
contact.
the Admiral's room.
Violators will be taken to the flooded district
There it is.
for treatment and rehabilitation.
It's been days since our men were dispatched to stash weapons for Corvo in the old sewer. They have not yet returned, so I can only hope they succeeded in getting the passengers delivered. Piero spent considerable time and resources making those things. If I could find a way to mass produce them, the Dunwall Navy would secure its place as the dominant force on the globe. But back to Corvo. Can he actually break out of Cordwood? And if so, will he make his way here? I personally give him odds of 5 and 1, or of 1 and 5. And then I think I already read I didn't read that. Alright, I'll read that later then.
Corvo seems to have arrived in good shape. Much better than I expected, given what I've seen of Coldridge Prison. He seems willing to work with us, and he shouldn't lack for motivation. The man has lost everything. We'll judge how he performs in the field. And if I can, I'll find a way to test him personally.
Huh. That's weird. What was the book oh, Volume 2. No, because you know, I read Volume 2. I know I read Volume 2. Volume 1. My sister Nina and I left Tivia together, saying goodbye to our aunt, the one who raised us since childhood, leaving behind our home city of Yarrow out in the cold but beautiful white landscape we'd always known. We boarded a ship for Dunwall. Our parents had left us with a sizable inheritance, and we spent half of this by getting to the capital city and establishing a small import shop dedicated to Tivian furs. Once it helped Nina establish the business, I was free to pursue my dream. Signing on with a whaling ship was the most exciting thing I've ever done, and I saw it as a means to an end. Someday I would captain my own crew and eventually own a fleet of similar vessels. With tears in her eyes, Nina kissed me farewell. And I did not see her again for many months. As an apprentice to the gaffer, I got to see the tracking and killing of the great beast up close. Nothing had ever fired my spirit so as the wind and pounding of the waves, racing after a wounded whale, and being pulled by a skein of cables embedded into its flesh. I changed more in those first 7 months than I had the previous 7 years. Whaling was beginning to put its mark on me, so that Nina barely recognized me when I returned, tanned and sinewy with muscle, weather creases already wrinkling the corner of my eyes, but she could see that I was filled with joy, having found my purpose. Then version 2 is like all about, it's horrible. Cool. What up?
Well, let's get down to it. First off, I know that assassination is dark business, but sometimes good men have to do bad things to make the world right. Our purpose is clear. We want to restore Her Majesty's line by finding and putting Emily Cauldron on the throne. To those ends, we'll hide, act in shadow, take them apart, piece by piece. Tonight, High Overseer Campbell dies by your hand. It won't be easy. He's protected by his overseers, an army of religious zealots. But if anyone can do it, you can. Your exploits are legendary. Campbell carries a private journal. Once you've eliminated him, get the journal, because we think it contains Emily's location. Recovering her is obviously critical, assuming she's alive. That's the gist of it. Remember our cause and strike true. We're counting on you. Another thing. Campbell is holding a former overseer by the name of Martin. He's one of us, and if you manage to find him, give him whatever help you can. He's a master strategist, and he got caught working for our cause. It'd be good to have him back here at the Hound Pits.
Good to know. Excerpt, The Exquisite Tallboy. Excerpt from a letter of public concern by anonymous authors. What you have read here is the truth, regardless of what you will hear from the authorities who rule over us. It is not a matter of coincidence that the former royal spy master is the one who stepped in when the late Empress fell. We, who remain nameless, believe that these events are interconnected. The sign of oppression is all around us. The so-called designs, originally intended to provide light and warmth in our homes, have been turned against us as a means of inspiring fear and controlling our movements throughout the city. And where did this plague originate? Some say it was imported. A wild theory? Perhaps. One of our members risked her life to obtain an internal report from the government, which we will be printing and sharing soon, called The Exquisite Tallboy, extolling the virtues of this newest member of the City Watch. To those down in the street below, these virtues are horrors, spread by stilted thugs who rain down fire on the sick and poor. To these eyes, the Tallboy is another government bully, armed with incendiary devices, thickly armored and standing high overhead, looking down at the common people of the city. We know now that Tallboys are heavily drugged, imbibing a substance that renders them resistant to pain, but also dulls whatever empathy they might normally possess. Exquisite, we think not. Copy those words and share them with your neighbors, and remember, when the tides are the lowest, the truth will be revealed.
Master Corvo.
How much money do I have? Oh, sweet Jesus, I have a ton of money.
Oh. Corvo. Hello. I'm Callista. I work here for Admiral Havelock. I'm sorry to intrude on your business, but this is important. I suspect you're going to kill the High Overseer. That wretched man. There's really no reason for you to listen to me. But my uncle, Jeff Kernow, still serves as captain in the City Watch. But he's a good man, and my only family. The chatter in servant circles is that Campbell just took delivery of an exotic poison. And I think I know why. My uncle's not corruptible like the rest of them. Campbell is going to poison my uncle. Do you think you could protect him? You used to do that, right? Before you had your current profession. Before you became an assassin.
I'll keep him safe, Callista. You can count on me for that.
What can I do for you?
I need buy stuff. Alright, I need crossbow range. I don't think I need reload. I care more about capacity at this point. Don't need the other stuff. I have enough money to buy reload, but I'd rather buy the rune first. And I actually do still have enough money to buy reload, so cool. And then I'll take your workshop key. Oh shit, that's this fire button. What's the... There's the zoom in button. Been a bit. Been a little bit. Well, with that all being said, next episode, we deal with the High Overseer. This one got very, very lore heavy. That's not always a bad thing, though. So next episode, we're going to get more into the action part of this. And we'll see what happens. Peace.